We'd have handled it differently. The American military speaks out over Saddam Hussein's controversial execution. A senior American general in Iraq has publicly distanced the military from the widely condemned execution, saying his troops had absolutely nothing to do with the facility, where the former dictator was jeered and barracked as he went to the gallows. Also at noon, an inquest begins into the deaths of 6 British servicemen in a helicopter collision at the start of the Iraq War, as relatives claim inadequate safety and training procedures were to blame. The killing of 5-year-old Ellie Lawrenson, the prosecution consider whether to prosecute her uncle under the Dangerous Dogs Act. And French with Attitude, the internet guide to Parisians' notorious Gallic grunts and gestures. In the money, the New Year nightmare for thousands, how Christmas spending has tipped many more of us into insolvency. The US military has distanced itself from the row over the chaotic conditions that surrounded the execution of Saddam Hussein, saying they would have done it differently if it had been their responsibility. In the wake of angry protests by Sunni Muslims over the execution, Major General William Caldwell told a news conference the Americans had absolutely nothing to do with the facility where the execution took place. Sarah Lockett reports. Well, joining me now from our Westminster studio is the Managing Director of British Gas, Phil Bentley. I'm sure a lot of customers will be glad to hear this, but why are you waiting till the end of winter to bring it in?
Well, driving into London this morning, Samira, it didn't feel like the end of winter, I can assure you.
Yes.
We've announced a price reduction today of 17%, as you said, and 11% on electricity, and that makes us the cheapest supplier on the street today. So that's good news for British Gas customers.
Well, hang on. The point is, you're not bringing down prices now. You're bringing them down in March, and prices have been falling since July last year. Why have you waited till the end of your winter quarterly bill? It's just to maximise your profits, isn't it?
Well, it isn't. I mean, we announced, we were the first company to announce we would be reducing prices, and we did that in December. We were the first company now to follow through. So I don't think anyone can accuse us of being slow to act.
Well, they can, because you're waiting till the end of the period when most people need fuel.
Well, what we said was we'd wait till we got through the winter market, because the winter market has been quite volatile. Just overnight alone, the wholesale market for gas actually went up 25% on a day-ahead basis.
But prices have fallen 60% since last July, and you know that you could have been passing on more of that saving before now if you'd wanted to.
Again, I think you've got to look at the facts here. The facts are that the prices have been very volatile. We said once we got through the winter months, we would be the first to reduce prices, and that's what we're doing. I think you've got to understand that markets are volatile. Companies have to buy their gas in advance. We're not buying all the gas for tomorrow, today, as it were, we've got gas costs that have been purchased over a period of time, and that's the way the gas industry works. Everyone understands that. When we've been having to raise prices last year, we delayed that as long as we could.
Well, to be fair, you've raised prices 7 times in the last 7 years, and this is the first time you've bothered to put in a cut since 2000. That's nothing to be proud of, is it?
Well, I think you just got to give us some credit there, please, because actually wholesale prices have gone up 4 times since 2003, and that's why we had to raise prices. British Gas's profits in 2006 were about 1% of margin. So
Phil Bentley,
I don't think anyone can say British Gas customers are getting a bad deal today. It's good news for them.
Thank you very much for coming on to speak to us. Now, the all-clear has been given for Anthony Gormley's collection of Iron Men to make Crosby Beach their permanent home. The sculptor's 100 life-size statues have been staring out to sea since July 2005, but last October, proposals to extend the installation were refused by Sefton Council. Some local people objected to the naked men as an eyesore, a danger to wildlife and a safety hazard for windsurfers and sailors. Revised plans imposing strict conditions have now won planning permission from councillors. Well, Anthony Gormley, I'm very pleased to say, joins me now. Thank you very much for coming in. Why was it so important to you that they should be allowed to stay?
Well, the work has been made 10 years. It's been travelling all over the world. It's come from De Panne Beach in Belgium, which was the last time it was installed. and now it has a permanent home, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic, not just for me. I think it's fantastic, in a way, for all artists, that it's possible to make a work of this, in a way, extinction, and find that through public support it can find a home.
But you know what the objections were. The trouble with making popular art is that it brings in an awful lot of day trippers, and they do have an effect on the environment. Do you understand why people objected?
Well, it's a bit odd, really, because this is a conurbation. It's very, very close to Liverpool. It's an industrial beach. There are two huge, great sewage pipes that go out. There's a scrap heap to the south. There's an oil rig to the north. There is a huge wind farm to the west. This is not a pleasure beach. You can't swim in it. There are quicksands. And actually there's nothing else to do with it.
And
really.
Tell us about the actual statues as well. I mean, how they work on the beach and why you feel it's important they stay there.
It's an installation that's 3 kilometres long and 1 kilometre deep, and it looks out over the sea, and it simply makes this real landscape, in a way, into a picture in which you find yourself. And the idea of the work originally was to talk about emigration, and the idea that across that horizon there was perhaps a new life and a new world possible. But I think now, as sea levels rise, this work is much, much more about global warming and the effect that human beings are having on natural systems. And this work, that takes its place in the elemental world, in some way invites us to think about where we fit in a natural order.
What sort of feedback have you had from people who live near there and who see it every day?
Absolutely extraordinary. Every single day I get emails of people who are evidently touched and moved by the work. Some of them just talking about perhaps a personal loss and coming to terms with it through being with the work. Others just actually just enjoying being on a beach that they're sharing with rather silent but still relatively friendly other beings. And it's been extraordinary, actually, the reaction of children, for instance, who seem to enjoy climbing on them and playing with them and using them as football goals.
One thing I noticed is looking at the lovely sort of image of one of them profiled against the sky. It does look a bit like Easter Island. Do you think, like Easter Island, they'll be there forever?
I obviously hope so. Some people say that they'll only last 300 years before they've rusted. I'm hoping that they'll last 1,000. I think Easter Island is an extraordinary phenomenon. The Maui of Easter Island, these great works that stare out in a way across the horizon and seem to suggest that actually they're not about communication between human beings, but a communication between human life and a life that might exist somewhere else in another place.
Anthony Gormley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, understanding the French is about to become a little easier thanks to Parisian tourist officials. British visitors can now go online to get explanations for widely used Parisian facial expressions and mannerisms. It follows a tourist board survey which found that 2/3 of British visitors thought communication with Parisians was difficult. So how do you pout like the French? To perfect the infamous Gallic shrug, le bof, stick out your lower lip and raise your eyebrows and shoulders. Then there is the Parisian pout, la moue, look bored, purse your lips, and then to emphasize, shake your head slowly from side to side. And finally, to show that you're fed up, or ras la bol, it's all in the hand action. Put your hand above your head to show that you've had enough. And you can find out more about the Paris Tourist Board suggestions at our usual web address, channel4.com/news. Alors, c'est tout. Nous revenons ce soir à 7h et aussi demain à midi. À bientôt et bon après-midi. Goodbye.